Hey, Wid fam, this is Leo with One Happy Widow, and this week I am going to discuss the different ways that people handle grief or stress, and the self-destructive things that we may do as a result of feeling, those stressful things and those grief feelings and all that. So stay tuned. We're going to talk about that in a bit. All right, guys. So I'm going to give you a little update on how things are going. I know last week I did a video. Honestly, I don't know that I'm going to be able to do a live stream for a while just because I'm so a little overwhelmed with this new job and everything that's going on. So um, I'm just going to try to make little recordings and just kind of release things as I can, just so that you can know that I'm still here. YouTube knows that I'm still here, and just to let you guys know that I haven't forgotten about you and I still care about you and I still want to help you. I just haven't been able to devote as much time and attention to the Facebook group. Link is down below, by the way, if you'd like to sign up. But, and honestly, last week we talked about being too busy to grieve, and I still feel that way. And the funny thing is that my husband JP, we were just driving down the road earlier today, and he said, I was so busy last week, and he didn't even watch my video, so he didn't know I had talked about this. But he said last week was his anniversary, would have been his anniversary, was his anniversary, but you stop counting the years, I guess. But I think it would have been his 35th or 36th anniversary on August 2nd. And so, on all those milestones, he still goes to her grave. And he said, yeah, I kept telling myself on Tuesday I was going to go to the cemetery and see her. But he said, I got so busy that I wasn't able to get there. And he said, I told myself I would go the next day and or the Thursday or one day later. And he said, and by that time I totally forgot. And he, was feeling some guilt because he was told himself he was going to go, and he got so busy they didn't make it there. And he finally did make it there, I think yesterday, and just cleaned off her grave and just visited her. But he was putting guilty feelings on himself because he had not visited her. And I tried to remind him that it's not really, she's not there, right? And so I'm sure she doesn't mind the fact that you did not go to the cemetery on your anniversary. So it was more just him putting the guilt on himself. And it wasn't really, I don't think it's really that he thinks she would be upset. It's more that he's upset with himself because he's allowing the busyness of his life to get in the way of his grieving. And so, in other words, this past week he was also too busy to grieve, the way that he normally would have, by going and making that connection at the cemetery and speaking to her and thinking about her and just giving her, honoring her memory in that way and giving her that time and those thoughts of him. And he was not, he got so busy, that he even forgot to do it. And I think he probably also felt some guilt that he forgot to do something for her, because it's just kind of a reminder that it's been 3 years for him now, and the time is going by. And sometimes as we get farther along in our grief journey, we do start to feel guilty because we realize that we get busy in our lives, or that we've moved forward, or we've found new love, or we've got a new job, or we just we're doing things, and we sometimes go longer periods of time between thinking about our lost spouse. And then when we do think about it, we start feeling guilty, like, wow, I'm not thinking about them every second of every day, or every hour of every day, or sometimes even every day. You might go a whole day and realize you didn't really think about them all that much. And all that means is that you're farther along in the grief process, and that's normal. It's going to happen. It should happen to an extent. You don't want to get to the point where you never think about them, and that won't ever happen. But you don't want to live your life stuck in this grief hole that all you do is think about them all the time and wish they were alive again, and living in the past. You're not supposed to do that. But just the process of moving forward and doing that does give us some guilty feelings. Guilty for leaving them behind, guilty for not thinking about them as much, and things like that. So that's a process that as we go farther down the grief journey, we're dealing with those type of issues that you might not have had before when you were in fresh grief. So, that's kind of where I am now. And so this week, though, I'm going to talk about I've had a really stressful week, just like I did last week, even more stressful this week. And I'll give you a few details, but I don't want to go on and on about it, but because it stresses me out just to talk about it. But and I will talk about some of the ways that I've handled it, mostly bad ways that I've handled it. And I'm equating that to how, when we, in our days of really bad grief, how we do things to sabotage ourselves that are the worst things that we can do if we're trying to grieve in a healthy way. Like we're our own worst enemies sometimes when we're trying to heal. And so some of the ways that I've dealt with my stress, I don't have grief pushing down on me right now. I have stress pushing down on me, but it's the same kind of response a lot of the times. And the fact that I am in grief and will be forever, it just kind of adds an extra layer of grief sauce, to that plate. So, in short detail, I started school this week with the students. And so the students came Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So I've had them for 3 days now. And you know that I was not real happy with my schedule. If you watched the last couple of videos that I've made, my schedule that they gave me was not what I was hoping to see, and it's been a little challenging. And so I have one class that is very challenging, and one student in particular that is pushing my professional training and limits and abilities to the very max. Um, and so I'm racking my brain trying to think of things. I'm going to have to really, do some research and ask colleagues for help and things like that in trying to help teach this student appropriate behavior responses and things like that, so that I can actually teach them some geometry. But and I don't want to get into a lot of details because that's it wouldn't really be ethical or legal anyway. But I mean, let's just say that I have a challenging class, and and some kids are more challenging than others in that class, and so it's almost taken me to my breaking point. And I know it sounds extreme to say that literally one student could, sometimes frustrate you to the point of considering giving up your career. But when you're feeling, like your stress level is so high and you're so tired, and you have to be the one to remain in control of your emotions because you're the grown up. I can't have an emotional outburst in class. I can't show my frustrations outwardly. I have to monitor my own behavior and choose appropriate ways to express my frustration so that I can set an example for those students so that they don't come back and instead of it escalating like this, I'm trying to de-escalate like this. And so it's I mean, I've taught on and off for 24 years, and I'm being challenged right now on this one. On top of that, they decided to 2 days before school started, they decided to change the math requirements for our ninth grade students, and they decided to extend the math requirements for them. The state has minimum requirements, but a district can add anything they want in addition to those. So rather than offer them the minimum amount of math, they've decided to basically offer, or not even offer, but make the ninth grade students take twice as much math exposure than they would have to by the state. And the reason why they're doing that is because of that's a weakness, an academic weakness of ours in our school is math, algebra specifically. And so 2 days before school started, they decided to extend the math offerings and double the amount of time spent in math classes than they normally would. But they failed to think about the fact that our students with math deficits have to have services in those classes. So you can't just open up a bunch of new classes. You also have to open up a bunch of new special ed classes to to be able to offer those special ed services to those students too. I mean, if you're going to include all students, that's included. We didn't have math services in algebra for first semester because we didn't have any students taking algebra first semester. So now that we do, we've had to create 3 new classes. And so one of them resource and which is remedial, like by yourself, and the other co-teaching, which is a mix of general ed and special ed students together with 2 teachers. So if you have 3 new classes that you didn't have before, that's a whole teaching job. We teach 3 classes a day and have a planning period. So if you open up 3 additional classes that you didn't offer before, that means you need a whole nother teacher. And we don't have the budget or the time to hire another special ed math teacher or any teacher for that matter. And so what has happened is they've had to change the schedule around and things like that and double up some kids over here and, just level things out. And then at the end of the day, they need a teacher to teach that algebra resource class. And if you remember that I told you that I'm the only one that is that is certified to do that. So bottom line is, instead of me teaching 3 classes a day and having a planning period, I'm on what's called extended day. And it hasn't started yet, but it's going to start any day now. Sometime next week probably. Instead of teaching 3 classes and planning, I'm going to be teaching 4 classes and have no planning. Technically I do, but my planning now lies outside of the duty day. So I either do planning at home or on the weekends or stay late at school or however I have to make it happen. But when all the other teachers are teaching 3 90-minute classes, I will be teaching 4 90-minute classes and not having a planning. And I had a choice of not to take that, but my day is already about as hard as it can get, and I'm already staying late anyway. And it was a significant pay increase for that little section. So it's a paid, it's extra pay. And if I'm in class, I don't have to be on duty. And they're using half of my time on planning as duty stations anyway. So this way I'll be getting paid. So that's what's happening. And so let's put all that aside. Let's put that all in a small nutshell and just say, my job is really hard and stressful and I'm really tired. And I know you can see it because people made comments last week like, oh, you look so tired and you look worn out and you need to take time for yourself and you need to take care of yourself. And yeah, and I appreciate all of I'm not discounting any of it. And I appreciate all of the support. It has really made me feel like, wow, people out there really, they really care about me too, just like I care about them. And it was nice. But at the same time, I know that I look tired. I am tired. And I'm not here to just whine and complain and say I'm so tired and my life sucks so bad and like all that stuff. I'm not that type of person. And, and it doesn't do any good, right? Like take a minute. So let's equate this to grief. Like let's equate this to you being in a situation of grief, because to me, the stress and the grief from my reactions to it are very similar. And so let's make that parallel. So let's say you're struggling with some grief and it's basically like overtaking you. The way that we react to that is either going to help us get farther through in our grief journey, or it's going to be an added stress and bog us down even more and cause this, this tornado or whatever, this vicious cycle, of having a lot of grief and then not dealing with it very well, and so you feel worse, and then you have more grief and stress because you feel worse it's that kind of a thing. And so I don't want that to happen to me, but I do see some things. I do see some ways that I'm reacting that are not helping me. And so I've allowed myself these last few weeks to just kind of do the best I can and like just suck it up and just do it and hang in there. But at some point I've got to step it up a little more and do some self-care. Like, and specifically what I want to talk about this week is that I have been eating horribly. It's all summer I was on a really good healthy program and I lost about 20 pounds. I was feeling good. I was looking better, and I was really proud of myself and I was real disciplined. And I mean, as soon as school started, first of all, when you go back to school, they always feed you. So they have this big brunch or this luncheon or this whatever. And it's never, healthy food. And when they offer you a free meal, you're going to take it. So you're like, it's pre-planning, you just do. And then as the stress got higher and higher and higher, and I had already kind of come off of my program, well, I stress eat. When I'm depressed, I don't eat. When I'm stressed, I eat like crazy. And I don't eat like a ton of amount of food. I eat the bad type of food. I make bad food choices, sweets and junk and comfort food. and bread and pasta and, all that stuff. So I've probably put on half the weight that I lost all summer. I probably put it back on in the last 3 weeks. And it's just like this cycle, and I'm like, I have got to stop. And not only, it's not just the weight. I'm not feeling good. Like, I'm not feeling comfortable in my body. I don't have the same kind of energy because I'm not feeding my body with good food. I'm not, um, my moods are bad. They're not, my moods are swings are up and down because I'm eating a lot of sugar. And so I get the high and then I get the crash. My joints are hurting because not only am I walking a lot more than I was before, but sugar basically feeds on arthritis and pain and joint pain, all that kind of stuff. Sugar does not do anything for body pain, it increases it, as a matter of fact. And so my joints are hurting, and like all these things, some of it can be attributed to my job, but a lot of it is being made worse by the bad food choices that I'm making. And I'm using the excuse that, well, I don't have time, I'm so busy. It's really not that. It's that I haven't taken the time to buy my good foods and plan out my meals and take my lunch with me because I'm like, I didn't have time to make my lunch, so I'll eat a Pop Tart. So I'm not really eating more calories necessarily. I'm not really eating like a whole gallon of ice cream, but Pop Tarts for lunch is not doing my body good. And so, and I know what I'm doing, but it's almost like my focus is so much on my stress and the job and the behaviors of the students and things like that, that I'm just like, I can't take the time to focus on my eating right now. It's a lie, but it's what I've used to tell myself as an excuse. And I've been trying to analyze this, because I'm always about how do you feel and what do you do about how you feel. And I even teach this to my students, to my children, and to the people who are taking my course, my grief pivot course. This it's about changing your mindset, and one of the biggest ideas about that is that you can't help the way you feel. You can't control your emotions. You can control how you react to those emotions. You can control the behaviors that come about as a result of those emotions. I'm not saying it's easy to do, but I'm saying, I even tell my children, you're allowed to feel mad, you're allowed to feel sad, you're allowed to feel frustrated. You are allowed to feel any way. You will never get in trouble for feeling mad. You will get in trouble for breaking something when you feel mad. So the consequences for the behavior that comes out from the emotions, not for having the emotions. It's the same thing we have to teach our students at school. You can be mad. That's okay. You're not in trouble for being mad. You're in trouble for punching, the glass over here. You're in trouble for shoving that other kid when he made you mad. And, so you see the difference. So let's talk about that in the grief, realm. You can't help that you're sad. You can't help that you're grieving. You cannot control the emotions that come about from your grief and your sadness and your depression and how you miss your person. But how you behave, now in the beginning, all bets are off, okay? Because we're in animal instincts at that point. We revert back to childhood behaviors when we are first in fresh grief because we're in shock. We could be, having emotional distress, like to the point where we honestly can't control what happens. But that's in the beginning. That's like in the first month or whatever. After that, as adults, it is our responsibility to monitor our behaviors and to make better behavior choices. And some of us do a better job of that than others. And so, and I'm not trying to make light of it and say, well, it's simple, just make better choices. I know it's not simple because I'm making really bad choices right now. And it's affecting me, and it's affecting my family, and it's even affecting my teaching ability because I get frustrated, and when I get frustrated, I don't make good decisions when I react to the students. So I know what I'm supposed to do, and it's so much easier to know what to do or tell someone else what to do than it is to do it yourself. But I am using myself as an example to say, I don't tell you to do stuff that I wouldn't try to do myself or that I wouldn't know is also good for me. And even though I know these things are hard for you, I'm still telling you to do them because they're still good for you. So, being a good parent, being a good leader, being a good counselor, being a good teacher, being a good mentor, all those things, it's not about telling the person what they want to hear. It's about telling them what they need to hear so that they can take action on things that we know is going to be the best for them. It's the whole tough love thing. And the last thing that I wanted to talk about is the reason. I think the reason why I have turned so much to this bad eating, and it's really kind of bothering me. And by the way, this weekend I'm making a change, so I'm going to spend all day Sunday getting my new grocery list. I'm going to make a plan for my eating. I'm going to plan out my meals. I'm going to prepare them ahead of time. I'm going to take them with me. If you take a healthy meal with you to work, you will eat a healthy meal, because you're not going to go to the vending machine and eat Doritos when you have your lunch in front of you that you already fixed. It's when you don't have your lunch in front of you that you're like, well, I can either starve, which is probably healthier for you on the one time, but I'm not going to do that. So I may get starve and skip this meal, or I'm going to the vending machine. I'm going to get a Twix, and a Pop Tart, and I'm going to get a Doritos and a soda. Like, that's terrible, right? But I'm like, well, I gotta eat. But whose fault is it that I'm eating from the vending machine? Mine. Because I did not take the time to fix myself a healthy meal and bring it with me. I have a fridge at work right next to my desk, my own personal fridge. I have a microwave right on top of that fridge, my own personal microwave. I don't have to go anywhere to heat up my food and keep my food cool. So that excuse is out. So it's been a choice. I have chosen not to eat healthy for the last 3 weeks, and now I'm paying for it, and I don't like it. I'm going to change it. But back to this, I was trying to think about, like, why do I do that? Why do I just say, well, you know, um, it's okay because it's just for temporary, or it's okay because of this, or it's okay because of that. Like, why do I put myself through, um, the bad consequences of not eating right when I know it's not good for me, and I do it anyway? And it's almost like at the time I don't even care. But when I start caring is when I see the results, the bad results of it. And I think it's because of this. Most of the time, even when I was grieving, I felt like I was in a state of, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to feel this way anymore. I don't want to go have this funeral. I don't want to raise my kids without a dad. I don't want to come home to a house with no husband. Like, all these things that I had to do, but I did not want to. And sometimes when things get really, really tough, for the most part, I'm in the don't want to phase. Even in fresh grief, I think I did okay with that. When you get overwhelmed and you get to that point, sometimes you flip a little bit from I don't want to do this, and you start thinking, I can't do this. And you're not right. If you say you can't do this, you can do this. The want to becomes so hard that you tell yourself that it's so bad that I don't want to do it so much that I'm just going to say I can't do it. Like, you tell yourself, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. Well, guess what? You are doing it right now. So you can. You just don't want to so much that you'd rather say you can't so that you can stop. And when it comes to grief, you can't stop. You can't just say, well, I can't grieve anymore. I can't do this anymore. I'm done. That's, there's only one solution to that, and it's not acceptable. That's when people get to the point where they, are considering making decisions about their lives that are permanent. And that's not where we want anyone to go. So we have to stay away from that mindset of, I can't do this anymore. But we're going to have those moments, where we feel like, I can't do this anymore. And I got to that point a couple of times this week. I wasn't like considering doing anything dangerous for myself or anything like that. But I mean, I got to the point where in my mind, I started saying those things to myself, like, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. And I was driving home from work yesterday, and I just started crying, and I was like, I can't handle these students anymore. I can't do this job anymore. And then as soon as I thought that, I had another, I have the little angel and the devil on my shoulders. or my conscience or whatever, and said, yes, you can. You just really, really, really don't want to. And so then my response to myself is, well, then I shouldn't have to. Like if I get to that point where I really feel like I can't because I don't want to do it so much that I just don't want to. But number one, I'm a grown up and um, I have bills to pay. And so I have a job that pays those bills. And so I have a responsibility to myself, my husband, my kids. Number two, unfortunately, I signed a contract for the school year. And so this is why they make teachers sign contracts for the school year, because if they don't, a bunch of teachers would be leaving right about now. Not just my school, but a lot. And I told a coworker just yesterday, it's a good thing I signed a contract, because if not, I'd be giving it about one more week and then I'd be putting in a notice if it didn't get any better. And I can break my contract, but I would lose my certificate. And even if I got it back, I would get it back. But how am I going to get another job at another, like a good job, a better job than what I have now by saying, yeah, that job was too hard and I couldn't do it. So I just quit. I just broke my contract and I quit. And I didn't care what the repercussions were. That's not going to get me to a better job later. So if I walk off of that job, it's because I quit teaching and I will never go back. And honestly, if I had the money, I that might be an option for me at this point. But all I keep thinking is, maybe it'll get better. So back to the point of the food. I had gotten to that point where my mind had said a few times, I can't do this anymore. I can't do it. I cannot do it. And the truth is I can. But I need to do a few things in order to handle it and not have a nervous breakdown. I need to get a handle on my emotions. I need to figure out a better way to reach my students that are being difficult, that have behavior issues. I need a better way to react to them. And I need to do some self care, because I'm not eating right, and that's probably messing with my emotions too. And so I need to fix a few things. Like I need to fix what I can. I need to control what I can, and then hope that it affects the rest of the things that I can't. And I think the reason why I've turned to the stress eating is because it's something that I can control. It's just like a kid who acts badly. He wants attention. And if he can't get the good attention, he'll act up to get bad attention, because bad attention is better than no attention. And so it's like, well, if I can't control anything else in my life, if I can't control my schedule and I can't control these kids and I can't control how tired I am, well, I can eat what I want. Whether it be I can control what goes in my mouth, even if it means bad choices, or I deserve these chips, because I've worked so hard and I'm suffering so much. But eating junk food is not a reward. You know, it feels like one because it tastes really good, but I'm not doing myself any favors. No, I'm not improving myself by eating the junk food. I'm making the rest of my life harder to manage, because now my emotions are, my thyroid levels are off because I'm eating crappy food. I'm not getting enough protein. All the things. And I talk about this in my course. I even talk about food and the effects of different types of foods, on your body and in your emotions and your sleep and your energy and your metabolism and all that stuff. Food can be your medicine and food can be your poison, depending on what food you put in your mouth. And so I'm not really trying to go on and on about food and specifically, but I'm trying to say um, that I have turned to some bad choices that are not good for me as a result of the stress that I'm going through right now. But those bad choices are in turn making it harder for me to deal with the things that are causing me stress. So ultimately, I'm making my stress worse by choosing those bad choices. And for you, it might be food, and for you, it might be drugs, or it might be alcohol, or it might be another one that I do is shopping. I do retail therapy, and it's causing some problems, in my marriage right now, because how am I going to complain about money and have 3 or 4 packages showing up at the front door every day? That's a story for another time. But and sometimes I'm like, well, it could be worse. I could be drinking and blah, but it's almost like I give myself a pass, because so what? I shop at Amazon and I eat, Pop Tarts for 3 meals a day or whatever it happens to be. But just because it's not drugs or alcohol does not mean that it's okay. It's still a vice and it's still bad for me. Um, I hate to say this, but a lot of times as widows, we go through phases where we make bad sexual choices. And that's a part of the grief response and the part of being lonely and, things that we think are going to make us feel better. And then the next day we feel worse. So the point is that everybody, not everybody, a lot of people, especially when you're in grief or in high stressful situations, I think we get to that point where we feel like I can't do this anymore. And when you're grieving, you don't have a choice, right? And so you choose something else since you feel like you don't have any control over your grief or the event that caused your grief. You choose something else that you can control, even if it's over the moderation, drinking or drugs or partying too much or staying up too late or bad sexual choices or and it could be anything. It could be anything that you do to excess that ends up not being good for you. And then there could be other things, and I'm not trying to go down the whole list, but if you are doing these things, you know what you're doing. And I'm not saying it to shame you because I'm doing some of the things too. I'm saying it so that you can be aware of number one, what you're doing, and number two, why you're doing it, and number three, to encourage you and let you know that you do have control over it. And sometimes you have to make the harder decision so that you can have the easier day the next day. Just like they say about exercise. You go through hell for an hour in a day, so the other 23 hours can be better. So that's what we're going to see it. Like, I'm going to see it that way too. I'm going to deny myself the instant gratification of, the little Debbies or the sugar babies or the goodies. I'm going to deny myself that in exchange for the healthy food so that the rest of my day and the rest of my emotions and how I'm dealing with these other things in my life, I can be better equipped to handle those stresses so that I don't get to the point that I just flip from I don't want to do this to I can't do this. Because I had those thoughts a couple times this week. I can't do this. Like, I just can't. And the truth is, I can. I just really, really don't want to. So I'm going to try to do some things. I can't control the reasons for those students' behaviors and their disabilities and things like that, but I can control some of the things that I'm doing to try to improve my situation. And maybe I'll help their lives get better a little bit and I won't be so stressed. Nobody wants a stressed out teacher. They feed off of that too. So that's my update. I'm going to get my healthy food. I'm going to order it. I'm going to make my plan. I'm going to have that all done this week. And it's going to be a slow process because I can put on weight about 4 times faster than I can lose it because I have a thyroid problem and because I'm old. And I think I'm going through premenopause because I've been having some hot flashes this week. So, I'm fighting all that, but I'm not going to use those as excuses not to do it. It just means it's going to be to lose those 10 pounds that I've put on, it's probably going to take me another 2 or 3 months to lose it back. But, time's going to go by anyway. And it's not just about the weight. If it helps my mood, if it helps with my anxiety, things like that, then it's going to be worth it. And, health problems. So, I think that's about all I want to talk about today. I know a lot of you said that you wanted to see the after of the classroom. And I have students now, so the classroom is pretty much set up the way it needs to be, and it looks pretty good. My desk, however, looks like a bomb went off in it. And so I'm still trying to clear off my own desk area. And so once I get that cleared up, which will be this week, then I will do a little video just to show you how I've set up the room. I changed a lot, and I think it looks really good. And I hope my students benefit from it. But it's made me. It helps me because I have to be in there every day, so it's as much for me as it is for them. It's my happy place. It's my favorite colors, and it's just real bright and colorful and organized. And so I will do a video of that this week as soon as I get my desk cleaned up because it's embarrassingly messy right now. And I'll post that maybe next week with whatever topic I decide to talk about. And I'll let you know how this whole food thing is going, and if my students are starting to calm down a little bit, and how my new schedule is going, all that stuff. So, if you are going through some heavy grief where you start having thoughts of, I can't do this anymore, and you maybe start turning to some bad choices, then try to stop and think about, is it that I can't, or is it that I really just don't want to? And what would it take for me to be able to handle this better? And you might not realize it, but there's a lot of things that you can do that will help you to be able to handle it better. Sleeping habits will help, eating habits will help, moving your body and exercising will help. Those are three big things that you can do. Self care. Get up and take a shower. You know, we've talked about these in other videos, but like, put yourself first and take care of yourself. And in turn, your body at a healthier level will help you with your emotional state, and will help take care of you emotionally as well. Okay, so if you have any questions or comments or things that you might want to share about things that you have helped you, then feel free to post in the comments below. I will have all the important links of the resources down in the description. And until then, I guess I will see you next week. Bye.